¿Qué nos puede decir acerca de los resultados del proyecto National Transfers Account sobre México?
Well, I'd like to start by congratulating the Center on its 50th anniversary. It's had a long and very well-known history. It's known, I think, around the world, certainly in the United States. And it's great to see it thriving. And this is a prolonged celebration with many different seminars and speakers. And it was good to see the lively interaction and questions and so on posed this morning. I'm asked what we've learned about the situation of Mexico from the National Transfer Accounts project and what lessons there might be for policymakers in Mexico. So Mexico stands out in Latin America and in the world for the extent that the elderly rely on asset income to fund their consumption. And I'm not exactly sure what that means in detail, what sorts of assets. These could be farms, they could be houses, possibly some of it is oil revenue through the public sector. In Mexico, the reliance on public sector transfers, pay-as-you-go pensions, is very low compared to other Latin American countries. It's a complete outlier. Latin American countries, I don't know if I can say in general, but many of them and many of the larger, more prosperous ones have very generous public pension systems, and consequently they're also going to have large fiscal problems going forward. Mexico isn't in that situation, it appears. Now, I don't know whether to say that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know enough about the local situation. I don't know whether the elderly without this pension are too poor or what the circumstance is. We have just seen, however, that even the elderly in the bottom quarter of the income distribution are still making net transfers to their adult children. And I'm very struck by that. This is a pattern that we see throughout Latin America, but I had thought it would be particularly so in countries that have generous pensions. And in Mexico, we have the case where the pensions are not generous, but the Mexican elderly make larger transfers downward to their adult children than in any other Latin American country except Brazil. And in Brazil, they're extraordinarily generous pensions. So that's one thing. The other thing that stands out for Mexico in comparison to any other country in the world is that consumption is very high relative to measured labor income. So there's labor income only rises above consumption a very little bit in the very middle of the age distribution, whereas typically there's a big surplus of labor earnings relative to consumption. So how is this possible? Well, it's possible because of the high asset income that I mentioned earlier. But what is that asset income actually? How much of it could be oil revenue? How much of it could be remittances from the United States? I don't have a clear understanding of that, and I think that will require more research. In general, I haven't done forecasts or looked at projections of Mexico's fiscal situation, but my guess would be, based on what I've seen, that Mexico would be in a better position in terms of its long-run fiscal outlook than a country like Brazil or Costa Rica, perhaps, because of the lower level of public sector transfers to the elderly. So I think that's about what I have to say about NTA and Mexico. Thank you.